Thank you for the music. So welcome to Denfeld High School for Mayor Reinert's 2024 State of the City Address. I am Janet Kennedy, and I serve the 5th District on the Duluth City Council. As the 5th District City Councilor in my second term, it's an honor to stand before you today. This moment fills me with pride as a Denfeld alum, and it's particularly special because last year, as the president of the council, we held this address at the West Theater. So it's clear Western Duluth is not just open for business, but we're also moving onward and upward, shaping our neighborhoods according to our visions. One of my fondest memories here is the time of being a track star. Affectionately, I received the name Rocket from Sonny Helbaka. So back in the 1900s, before 8th graders and 9th graders played for high school teams, I represented Denfeld as a 9th grade sprinter. I remember the high school girls running from Denfeld approaching me over at West Junior High School and asked me to join their track team for a meet because they knew of my city record-breaking sprinting. While I couldn't attend that meet, I did receive one of the first Prep Athletes Awards from Marsh Nelson back in the 1900s. Reflecting on those days, I recall my coach asking me why I always looked side to side while I was running, because I just run, and it was fun. I said, well, I replied to him, if I saw somebody coming closer to me, I'd run faster. So in my council work, I strive to emulate the lessons from my track days, moving forward at a pace that brings us closer to our goals. Just as in relay races, we're often ran the last leg. I understand the importance of teamwork in achieving success for our Duluth community. So I want to thank you, and it's my pleasure to be here today. I will now announce Mr. Vukolich. Joe Vukolich is a retired economics and government teacher at Denfeld for 29 years. That must have been in the 1900s as well. He is the author of the book, Come Back Home, A History of Denfeld High School. Welcome, Mr. Joe Vukolich.
Good evening. Welcome to the capital of West Duluth. And welcome to Robert Denfeld High School. This is a great setting because this high school is one of the only high schools in America whose namesake is from two individuals who were not from Duluth but gave their entire city and professional career to the city. Robert Denfeld was from Massachusetts, and he graduated from high school right after the Civil War. 2% of Americans had a high school diploma in the 1870s. He had a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, and passed the bar exam in 1876 and 1881. He was one of the top 1% best educated men in America. He was traveling from Massachusetts to Montana. He stopped in the Twin Cities, and they said, there's a port city growing hand over fist. And so he came to Duluth in 1885, and he gave 31 years to the city of Duluth. It started with 7 schools. He left 34. He managed smart growth well, and for his service to the city of Duluth. And when he retired in 1916, they named the new high school after him, Robert E. Denfeld High School. He's known for 2 things, primarily. He was the first superintendent to offer free textbooks to students, and secondly, he was the first superintendent to provide for a night school. Walt Hunting, whose the name Hunters derives from, was a World War I veteran. His football teams were so good that half of their schedule were for teams from out of state because nobody around here would want to play them. In 1935, for the season, we outscored our opponents 250-6. So kids would stand in public school stadium and would wait for the team to come running out on the field, and one kid yelled out, "Here come Hunting's Hunters." And since 1935, the name has stuck. He published 2 articles about his football coaching, which would be the equivalent today of being asked by Sports Illustrated, would you write what you're doing? Okay. Probably most importantly, though, he chose for his premier position, the tailback in his offense, to be an African American a decade before the Supreme Court integrated public schools. What makes Denfeld Denfeld is one word: tradition. Whether it's the 115 graduating classes, the 97 consecutive Maroon and Gold Day homecomings, whether it's about 1/3 of the staff is either alumni or have given their entire careers here consistently, or the 2009 Hall of Fame when we had 9 decades of Denfeld hunters come back home, including right in the front were the Robert E. Denfeld and the Walt Hunting families. They're still in touch with the school. It's more than just a name on a building. Most, for posterity, the thing that's most important is Denfeld High School has the second largest public endowment for college scholarships in America. Three alums, Marie Saltwick, Armin Hauge, and Jack Wood, over the decades contributed a total of $9.9 million, where the principal stays the same and it's only the interest that's given out to kids going to school. The auditorium, which is where we're obviously sitting right now, this auditorium was built 99 years ago, and you probably realize that the seats have not changed at all. I remember a 53 grad said that's to make us all pay attention, so right now I'm grateful for that. It cost $25,000 in 1925 to build this auditorium. I did one of those inflation calculator things, which would mean today it would be $443,274 to build the auditorium, which of course includes a sound, light, and technology upgrades. Which, by the way, there's a technology referendum coming up next month that this auditorium could probably benefit from. To give you an idea what the architects of this building thought, it was built for expansion, not to go around in a D, but to go up. When the red plan, the long-range facilities plan came, they checked it out and said, no, yeah, it could, but we're going to go a different way. But there was one thing about the auditorium, and I'll give you a quote that the architect said 99 years ago. This auditorium is planned on scientific lines with a bold floor providing a view of the stage from every angle, with the seats arranged in a semicircle. It was treated with sound-absorbing materials to improve acoustical qualities. The auditorium is the only part of this building where no additions are planned nor wanted. They were pretty emphatic about, like, just don't touch it. I always said, you know, the curtains haven't been cleaned since Coolidge was president. I don't think they meant that, but it's been cleaned since then. This auditorium and the Duluth Armory were the only two public venues in the city of Duluth open for entertainment until the deck was built in 1966 and 67. So from 27 to 67, the Armory and here were the major venues, and Denfeld's stage here has seen incredible celebrities. Vice President Nixon spoke here in 1954 against communism. Ed Sullivan was here. Johnny Cash performed here. The Ink Spots, Johnny Mathis. Time and Newsweek did our artist rendition of this gas advertisement. And I haven't even mentioned about the legend of the ghost, which I'll just skirt right on by. In YouTube and Google for about that. The pipe organ, which is covered up right there, was paid also $25,000, and there's pipes that go behind these pillars on each side, and I'll give you the pipes give it the sound behind the archway. It's produced from music blowing a stream of air produced by a compressor in the basement through 2,000 pipes. It was officially dedicated to a packed house here when St. Paul's Hugo Goldwyn played an organ concert in June 1927. On the architecture there's this a deed with rose, which denotes the love the city of Duluth had for Robert Denfeld. There's gargoyles, because gargoyles were put on schools, courthouses, and churches to try to drive out the animal and demonic instincts of humans. There are two women right up above me here. One is holding a harp, and she notes the music that is being played. And there's a woman with a tablet with the Latin word historia, which means she's recording everything that happens in this auditorium for posterity. So, Mr. Mayor, your speech is being recorded in more ways than one. Thank you very much.
In my comments, but at this time, if you would rise, and we will present the colors and then join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Color guard, if you could please present the colors. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. And at this time, I would like to invite our City President, Roger Reinert, to the podium to make some comments on behalf of the City Council.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I'm honored to be here tonight at the State of the City address to represent the Duluth City Council as President, along with Vice President. We have an incredibly dedicated group of 9 councilors that represent the interests and the well-being of all the people that live in this city. And I would like to recognize each of them by calling their names and welcoming them to stand. We have 4 at-large councilors: Vice President Therese Timonek, we have Councilor Eric Forsman, Councilor Azreen Owl, and Councilor Lynn Nephew. We also have 5 district councilors. In the 1st district, Councilor Wendy Derwachter. 2nd district, Mike Mayo. 4th district, Tara Swenson. And in the 5th district, we have Janet Kennedy. Please join me in appreciating them. A strong council is a diverse group of representatives with different and equally valuable opinions and ideas that come together to make policy decisions. We ask tough questions, we listen, we debate with intention of finding and refining the ideas that are produced. We don't always agree, and that's expected and really okay. But there are 2 things that we can really agree upon. And one, the complex challenges we face as a city, as a community, are not insurmountable. We have this. And 2, we would not be able to do this work, to thrive as a city, without the talented and dedicated city workers. I would like to recognize them now by asking all city staff and administration to please stand and be recognized. Thank you so much. As a council, we are ready to tackle the challenges that we face, to build upon the success that we achieve, and look forward to a promising future. And with that future in mind, I have the distinct honor to introduce the Mayor of Duluth, Roger Reinert.
Thank you, President Randorf. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm excited to be here this evening and incredibly proud to stand before you as your 40th Mayor of Duluth. First of all, I don't know if they're still hopefully in earshot, but another round of applause for Mr. Lehigh and the Denfeld Jazz Band that has set and a real note of appreciation to everyone at Denfeld who helped make tonight happen. Our staff have been here over the last couple of days, here all afternoon. I also want to just give a deep note of appreciation to two students. Mr. Rehnquist introduced me to Leo and Jaden this afternoon. Right as we totally unplanned, he came in, we were going to do our rehearsal, went to a room where Leo and Jaden presented me with wrapped me in a hunter blanket, which just seemed like the way to start all of today's activities and was incredibly meaningful to me. So to Leo and Jaden, thank you so much. You probably don't appreciate how much that meant to me. Let's see if we can do that without what I did at the News Tribune forum last year. So if you were there, you know. I also just want to take a moment and acknowledge again all the city councilors that are with us. Appreciate your attendance. I know everyone's here except for Councilor Tomanek, who is out of town. Our other elected officials that are with us. I think I saw a couple county commissioners. I know our county auditor, Nancy Nielsen, is here. Also a deep note of appreciation for all of our city employees that are in attendance. I always say there is no city without city employees. They are the ones that do all of those things that we expect from local government. And I know we have a number of other key leaders that are with us in the audience today. And I appreciate your attendance and partnership. I also know Mayor Gary Doty and his lovely bride Marcia are somewhere in the audience and have appreciated their friendship and their attendance tonight. And then I have a very special guest right up here in the front row, Mayor Dave Kleiss from St. Cloud, who drove up today to be with us. Mayor Kleiss has been so willing to allow me to reach out and connect with him as a peer. Dave, I don't know if you know, you're going to be a mentor if you haven't figured that out already. Now, his community clearly loves this guy. He recently delivered his 19th State of the City address in St. Cloud. He has completed his 5th term in office. Last week, he announced that he will not seek a 6th term, and Mayor, just congratulations on the legacy of service that you are leaving in your community. And I also want to give a special shout out to all of the ISD 709 school board members who are here. They held an April work session right here at Denfeld today so that they could be present tonight, and I greatly appreciate that. And as Mr. Vukovic said, just a reminder that on Tuesday, May 14th, the school district residents will have the opportunity to consider a capital projects levy that will invest in upgraded classroom technology and curricula, digital infrastructure, and cyber and physical security throughout the schools. And I know technical investments right here in this amazing auditorium at Denfeld High School. So thank you, Mr. Vukovic, for telling us a little bit about where we are and why it's special. You know, I called him, I hadn't met him before, chatted a minute about what I was hoping he would do and kind of telling us about Denfeld. And in about 30 seconds, I'm like, yep, you're the guy. Yeah, you'll talk to him. So, I chose Denfeld to be the location for my first State of the City with intention. I live on the west side of town, and while I don't have kids, if I did, they would have been Denfeld hunters. And as you've heard, it's an incredibly historic part of our community, the bedrock and foundation of the city of Duluth. And it really, I think, represents an important part of who we are as a community. And much like there's some magic and symbolism around this location, there's also some magic and symbolism around the 100-day mark. You know, that 100-day phrase is often used within the context of elections and inaugurations. And at my inauguration, I told you we would have this conversation now. And having lived through the first 100 days, I understand why now is the right time. Before I took office, I also told the public that we would approach this transition in 3 phases over the first year. The first phase involved some big changes on day 1. 4 critical positions were transitioned. I decided that we needed a different city administrator and a new city attorney. I am incredibly grateful to Dave Montgomery, actually maybe more to Cindy, for Dave coming out of retirement to serve his 3rd mayor as our city administrator. I always tell him 2 more and he matches Clarence Maddie's record. I don't think he is in for that, but your experience, your partnership, your friendship have just been so critical as we have made this transition and as I've entered into this new role, and I am genuinely grateful. And we also have a new city attorney, Jess Frannick. You know, Jess and I had never met, but her name kept getting offered to me as I was preparing to come into office. You know, Jess has, and she doesn't like it when I do this, but it is so true, has the ideal mix that you want in a city attorney. She has a background as a county prosecutor. She has a private practice transactional background for all that contract work that we do. And she came to us out of the 6th District where she was a judicial referee. You put those overlapping Venn diagram circles together and that is exactly who you want in a city attorney. So thank you, Jess. You have gotten in and gotten immediately to work, and I am grateful for your partnership on such critical issues that we have. And my appreciation to the City Council. You supported these early executive decisions, and I know that maybe wasn't easy for everyone. Together with these new city leaders, we spent January working on routine city business that had been on pause since the election. Some necessarily, some thankfully, and some unfortunately. But this team jumped in and we got the machinery of government moving again. I also want to mention that in this organization of almost 900 people, there are 2 positions that are dedicated to support the work of the office of mayor. And on day 1, I also transitioned those 2 positions. Now, consistent with what I told the public back then, I held them open for 4 months. So if you've not gotten the meeting you wanted as soon as you wanted it, or maybe as many meetings as you wanted, as often as you wanted them, or your email answered as quickly as you would like, that's a big part of the reason why. So, that was necessary, but it is not sustainable. So as I shared with somebody earlier tonight, I am so excited tonight to introduce 2 new members of the mayor's office team. They are both bringing amazing skill sets to the city. Both rose to the top out of a competitive search process, and both are going to help exponentially increase my bandwidth. So Jessica here is going to be our new team member who's responsible for external and internal communications, our community events, and how we market the City of Duluth as an organization. And John Dukic will focus on policy and government affairs. He will build relationships with our state and federal delegations, our other governmental partners, and also help tackle complex policy problems, like why we have a snow emergency that our plow drivers say don't use. John, we got to figure that out. Both will help me solve our will also help solve our everyday problems involving city government, good old constituent service work. They began on May 6th, and I cannot wait. And again, I appreciate the City Council for their support in filling these 2 positions earlier this week. Now, these leadership changes were phase 1. Phase 2 is underway now. It's a hard look at the infrastructure of the organization. How do we best align human and fiscal resources to deliver on our priority core city services? And Dave Montgomery is leading on this. We are challenging our internal teams to challenge complacency and stretch the boundaries of our comfort zones, especially around how we support the big issues we've articulated as community priorities. We can't just keep doing what we've always been doing. Our best learning and growth comes when we are outside of our comfort zones. And at the same time, we are working hard to shape a high-performance leadership team to tackle these issues and our internal functions, to not just identify problems, but also fit solutions. And we need to instill that as a culture throughout the entire City of Duluth organization. This is phase 3. And I anticipate, in transparency, it will take the entire first year. Developing our first budget will be a big part of that process, and believe it or not, that internal work for the 2025 budget begins next month. So here we are tonight at the 100-day mark, as I said to one of our reporters, plus a few, to talk about what has already been done and the work that lies ahead. Now, I want to add that the 100-day mark means something in an organization, but it also means something when you're the new employee. HR and staff development professionals talk about the 5 stages of worker development. You know, when you're new in a role, you initially don't know what you don't know. And then in time, and hopefully not too much time, you figure out what it is that you don't know. So now you've moved to that great phase of, well, now I know what I don't know. And that's where I'm at. And I would love to tell you that I have all the answers, but that would fundamentally be dishonest, and I'm unwilling to do that. Instead, what I will talk about tonight is where we are headed, why that is important, the actions we have already taken, and the work we have yet to do. And I will also offer you some really big things in each of the areas I want to touch on, things that we could do that would actually move the needle. And then I will finish this evening by inviting our entire community into the work. So we spent the past year talking about 5 big issues. Now, they may not have individual issues, but without doubt, they were the issues of the 2023 election. Housing across levels, growing our commercial tax base, streets, which I usually put in all caps with exclamation marks, downtown Duluth, and affordable property taxes. We also talked a lot about the need, the critical priority for the city to focus on city things. Those core city services that only local government does. If we don't do them, no one else does them for us. Streets, utilities, public safety, our parks, our libraries. Friends, these things are must-dos, and everything else is a nice-to-do. My singular focus as your mayor is this: effective and efficient core city services at a tax rate we can both afford and sustain. Everything I talk about tonight will tie back to this top-line guiding principle. Now, these big issues do not live or operate independently, and one of our failures has been to treat them as one-offs or challenges that only live in the present. As we think about the way ahead, we have to become much more strategic, and we have to become much better systems thinkers. We have to continually challenge the tendency towards quick fixes, and instead ask ourselves, how can we actually move the needle? The former might feel good in the moment and score some better political points, but the latter is the better long-term investment in our community and for our future. So let's dig in. Our first issue is housing. Friends, we have to grow our population. 0.5% in the last decade, 0.5% is not growth. It's stagnation. And stagnation leads to decline. But in order to grow our population, we have to get incredibly serious about housing. Rental and for-purchase options across all income levels of various types and located throughout our community. Census data is clear. People are coming to our region, they're just not coming to Duluth. The critical problem is that our housing market is stuck in the middle. Those who have the means overpay or overrent for the options that are available and already exist. This puts downward pressure on the existing housing stock, resulting in a growing population in need of affordable housing. We have too many lifelong Duluthians who can no longer afford a home in their own hometown. dynamic in the conversation we had last year. But don't take my word for it. Just last month, the Minneapolis Fed published an article that said the exact same thing. Seriously increasing inventory makes a difference, and not over a relatively short period of time. It increases access, decreases purchase and rental costs, and relieves pressure on the affordable and ultra-affordable stock. Minneapolis has produced new housing across all income levels at a rate 3 times the national average, while simultaneously holding down purchase and rental costs. Now, I want to acknowledge, and I think he's here, right here somewhere, Director Chad Ronchetti and his staff in Planning and Economic Development. Chad and I talk on a daily basis because his department is the engine in City Hall. It pays for City of Duluth operations. His team owns housing, commercial growth, and economic development. Everything we do or want to do starts there. In the first 100, we already made the Lot D Wharf development a legislative priority. Our goal is sufficient bonding funds to secure the seawall, preserve Superfund work in the adjacent slip, underway in the commercial, retail, and residential development on that site. Announced the development, and I was just told today, an expected groundbreaking in June, of an entire new neighborhood on the former Central High School site, the Incline Village project. And just last week, we broke ground on the Lakeview 333 project downtown. These projects alone will add over 2,100 market rate rental and 4 purchase options to the Duluth housing inventory. But there's more. We've also met with a developer looking at adding 230 new single-family homes in the Heights. We've had initial discussions for a complete redevelopment of the former West Duluth Kmart that will include both housing and retail. We've continued to work with the developer for housing adjacent to the Lester Park Golf Course, not on, adjacent to. And we've worked to get the condemned Shoppers Wrap downtown demolished and to move forward on redevelopment of the First Street corridor for yet more residential housing. But the single biggest challenge facing us as we continue to actively pursue housing across all income levels is the upfront infrastructure costs. It's simply math. If we choose to continue to put the street, utility, curb, sidewalk, demolition, and other site prep costs on the books of the builder developer, the final project is just that more expensive. As one builder told me, I can't get a home to market in Duluth for under $400,000 because I've got $100,000 into that home before I even start building it. That has to change. So the first really big thing that I need us to figure out is how to pay for the public part of new development. The infrastructure costs like streets, utilities, and sidewalks. And to get there, we need to identify other sources of cash funds to help pay for these upfront costs. TIF and tax abatement cannot continue to be our go-to. Even when the but-for test is met, they starve local units of government, including the city, the county, the school district, of much-needed revenue, often for decades. We must better engage our Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Under Minnesota law, authorities function much like other local units of government and have many of the same tools. They are just more focused. So we need the Duluth HRA to be in the housing across all income levels business. You know, the last time we added an entire new neighborhood in Duluth, it was an HRA. Single-family homes, most market rate. Some upper, some affordable. Mostly purchase, some rental. All done by the Duluth HRA, not the City of Duluth. But that was now 20 years ago. And today we need 3 more of those, at least. We need to be intentional about the use of our remaining American Recovery Act funds, those ARPA dollars. This is cash that must be allocated by the end of the calendar year. And councilors, I ask that you send it to DUDA. Our Economic Development Authority is a board of 7 that currently includes 3 city councilors. You can ensure funds are used to support affordable and market housing with gap financing. You can reduce the upfront hard costs that literally prevent developers from getting projects out of the ground, and you can support the development. And we also must look again at bonding for these upfront costs. When we look at the development of 230 single-family homes, we can upfront those infrastructure costs and help get them off the developer's books. And then we get repaid as the lots are sold, and they will sell. It's a strategy we used to use all the time, but haven't touched now in over a decade. And it allows us to use public dollars to pay for public infrastructure and to get housing and homes to market at a more affordable price. The second issue I want to chat about tonight is growing our commercial tax base, which we must do. Because when our commercial tax base isn't growing, our local burden shifts to residential homeowners. And you know that. You felt it. The average income in Duluth is $34,000 and an average household is $58,000. Today, that increasing residential tax rate is simply not affordable for most Duluth homeowners. So what's the solution? It's to grow our own commercial tax base. In Duluth, commercial property is about 30% of our tax base and has not measurably grown in years. Yet in Minnesota, because we have a progressive tax system, commercial property pays about 2/3 of the bill. So when it's not growing, the rest of us pay more. It's critical we make Duluth a place to start and grow a business. And yet Duluth has a reputation as a challenging place to do that. What this means is we incentivize the development that we do attract. And it too often means we lose out on those local commercial property taxes as a result, sometimes for as many as 30 years. Again, who makes up that difference? Existing businesses and existing homeowners. I am committed to being a partner and not a hurdle for our projects. We can do this while upholding our community standards reflected in zoning and building codes. We will grow together. We will enhance our city's affordability, and we will increase our capability to provide quality core city services that are both robust and affordable. Our motto in City Hall must be, how do we get to yes? Now, cultural change takes longer than 100 days. We've already been after it. How do we get to yes? Staff know I say it all the time, and it's starting to show up already. That simple attitude change, articulated and reflected by our City Hall team to our external partners, makes a huge difference. Since taking office, we've had about a dozen meetings with investors and business owners who have expressed interest in Duluth. They've heard there's a different energy and a different tone, and they want to know more. How we do what we do matters. A local who I saw is here with us this evening said to me a couple of days, he had this amazing interaction with City Hall. He said, "I do something on a project," and staff said, "No, not that." And he said many times that's the conversation. But this time they said, "How about this instead?" That is how do we get to yes. Longer term, we have to work on secondary and tertiary opportunities to grow our core economic sectors. Aviation, transportation, medical, higher ed, tourism. And let's not forget here in the Western community, our rich manufacturing and natural resource history. Over time, known as a place where we make and deliver. These are economic sectors where our primary businesses, from the port to the airport to the hospitals, have deep and are doing well. But we must ask ourselves, where are the follow-on businesses? The things we would expect to find in each of these economic clusters. That is our economic development low-hanging fruit. Medical industry, for example. Between Essentia and St. Luke's, we have the smartest, most talented providers in multiple states. We deliver the best care anywhere. And we're working on adding a University of Minnesota Medical School to the mix. Where is the related research, the procedure development, the product development? Where is our mini bio-life science alley? Where is our medical district? That is an opportunity. So whether it's attracting new businesses to Duluth, growing our own, or expanding what we already have, our secondary and tertiary business opportunities related into those existing core economic sectors is our way ahead on commercial tax-based development. But this topic, let me leave you with one really big thing. Something I think would actually, let's get our economic authority out from under the City Hall umbrella. A truly independent DDA. Now the other authorities and are singularly focused on their missions. But DDA is constantly filtered through a City Hall political lens. We want to be mindful of public accountability, and we have that in the mayoral appointment and City Council confirmation process. Again, currently 3 of 7 DDA board members are also Councilor. But after that, set them free. Go forward. Get after it. As a Duluthian, and every Duluthian in the audience, our favorite topic, streets. Streets, utilities, and public safety are basic expectations that residents have from our city. And with winter, I think, behind us, we can't snow removal are always high on that list too. Mayor, I loved your comment that, because you were mayor last year as well, you balanced out a lot of snow plowing with a lot less this year, so you were evening out your budget. Well done. In last year's conversation about multiple tangible steps, and in the first 100 days, we have moved forward on every one of them. We authorized a contract to drive and map every street mile in Duluth. This will be done by the fall. It will give us the best data we've had in years on street and sidewalk conditions. And that data will allow us to examine our existing system and rate every curbs and sidewalks as well. Now with that, we can categorize streets, yellow, red, and we can generate and post an easy to understand for residents. One of the things I've learned in Duluth is that we all think we live on the worst street in Duluth. Go out and campaign at-large councilors across the entire city, you end up sharing with folks like, your street's not actually that bad, when you rate it against other streets. So I think having that shared information is helpful. And that data will allow us to also put out a multi-year schedule. Residents can then anticipate when repairs to their happen. 26 miles long, and we don't always move from one end of the community to the other. We know our street, we maybe know our neighborhood, but we don't know that, when we live west, we think all the streets in east are great, and when we live east, we think the must be getting the attention. When we share that information, picture. And as with most things in life, not having information, not knowing is the worst. That data will also allow us to ask ourselves if every street mile still needs to exist. Are there connectors and access points that no longer serve a purpose? Any reduction in existing inventory means funds we already have can better maintain the rest. Data will also allow us to help do a better job with clearing sidewalks in the winter. This had to be right up there with issues I heard about last year. Our teams will have the information necessary to develop snow removal strategies for busy streets and determine where and how best to store snow in heavy snowfall winters. Now, we tend to measure street success by the number of miles we do each year. It's an easy metric, but is it the right one? Or more accurately, is it the only one? Because in addition to building streets, we have to actually maintain them in order to prolong their usable life. So who had tar snakes on your State of the City bingo card tonight? Tar snakes are those things we use to seal cracks in asphalt. Water and ice are the enemy of streets. And just as those elements over time turn mountains, they destroy paved. So come this summer, in addition to filling potholes, for the first time in years, we will also be out crack sealing. I am super excited about this, which tells you I'm a little bit of a geek, but also that I'm genuinely passionate about core city services. And I've already told Director Benning, I am getting out there and I'm going to help put those down because they are significant to help us helping to prolong the life of streets. Prolonging the life of streets also means not doing a street overlay when a complete rebuild is actually the right thing to do. Overlays are relatively expensive. You get more total miles. It surely scores more political points with the public. But the downside of an overlay when you actually need a is that next year you're digging a hole in that street because something underneath broke. Superintendent, we just had this happen in our own neighborhood. I hate when that happens, and I know many Duluthians do too. Staff recently asked me what was more important, miles or the street? Because a mill and overlay $240,000 per mile, while a complete street rebuild averages closer to $5 million. So it's easy to get more miles out of overlays than rebuilding streets with money. But what I said to staff at that meeting was, you're the professionals. You tell me what the right thing is, and I will go out and talk to the public about why it's the right thing to do. So we're on schedule this year to do about miles in 2024, but only 1.3 miles of those will be. That schedule was set last year before I took office. Now next year you may see that number dip because next year we will spend 50% of our 2025 funds on full reconstruction versus 7% this year in 2024. Because that's what right looks like. And rebuilds and reconditions are expensive. Now I chose my words here carefully. I said may. Identifying additional resources for streets and utilities will be a priority in building next year's budget. 15 miles a year is a metric. With proper maintenance, the lifetime of a street mile is 30 years. So if we could sustain 15 miles a year over 30 years, we would cycle on a timely basis every street mile in Duluth. Overlays when we can, reconditions when we should, and complete rebuilds when we must. But somehow, we have to find a way of inverting our current model. We spend most of our street money on building and not nearly enough on maintaining. Our goal has to be a model that has us spending most of our money on maintaining and a smaller percentage on rebuilding. To our county partners, that's what the county does, and you do it well. Duluthians, if you are anywhere near where a county road meets a city street, you know these two models are different. So when it comes to streets, inverting this model is the really big thing, and it's what will move the needle. That's why we continue to explore bonding against our half-cent dedicated street sales tax. It's following the proven St. Louis County model, and it could help us overcome this hill of diminishing returns. But current interest rates make this challenging. I know our finance director, Jen, is here, and Jen did the math. If we were to bond tomorrow, we would raise about $107 million. But only about half of that would go to streets. The remainder would go to interest. So expect us to move in this direction, but when interest rates are more favorable, and it's prudent to do so. So our that I want to touch on tonight is downtown Duluth. Friends, a downtown is the community's heart, and we need a downtown that is vibrant and thriving. Over time, we have seen the role of downtowns change. They were once retail, then became commercial and professional. And post-pandemic, their future is residential. First, we must address the reality of current challenges. And I know I saw Christy Stokes here. Christy knows this better than anyone. We have to address our concerns about attractiveness, safety, and cleanliness. This is the alligator closest to our boat when it comes to downtown. In the short term, we need to enforce our community norms, and we need to support our public safety teams. Duluth Fire, Duluth Police, and the Clean and Safe teams do hard jobs that we all want done and don't want to do ourselves. They work hard on a daily basis to have patience, show compassion, and connect individuals struggling with much-needed resources. And if you would, please join me in a round of applause for what they do for us on a daily basis. As with all of our city teams, sometimes they just need to know that they're supported. Christy will have what I would call an all-hands meeting about downtown public safety. I'll make a few comments, Chief Sanoa will speak, Attorney Freilich will speak, and they will repeat much of of what you're hearing tonight. And then beginning in June, we will return to monthly meetings to include Duluth, the Canal Park Business Association, Duluth Fire, Duluth Police, our attorney's office, and all the other vested downtown stakeholders. I will attend these meetings as often as possible. If I cannot, both Jess and John will be there to represent the mayor's office. This is that important. This will be a regular opportunity to share concerns, get updates, and collectively hold ourselves accountable for progress. These meetings are not intended to be gripe sessions. We have those opportunities, and frankly, friends, we know what the challenges are. They are intended to GSD. And if you don't know that acronym, ask a neighbor. They'll fill you in. We must be better coordinated. We must communicate better. We must have a space where all downtown stakeholders can share challenges, get regular updates from law enforcement and our service providers, and also be active parts of the solution. And in the first 100 days, we've also taken multiple practical steps to make a difference downtown. These include extra foot patrols in the street, on the street, and in the skywalk. I hope you've seen this more visible presence from Attorney Freilich has prioritized funding a 5th criminal prosecutor within her office, setting priorities that meet our community expectations, and frankly meet the expectations of the women and men we ask daily to go out on our laws and ordinances. Attorney Freilich and Chief Sanoa are reviewing the changes made by the legislature around recreational drug use and related paraphernalia. Aspects of this, frankly, have made it more difficult for our to take action on illegal behavior. And we need to do a better job of understanding where Duluth has local control. Councilors, we will be bringing you some proposed ordinance changes, and I ask for your partnership in this effort. Again, with the city attorney and DPD, we're reviewing current skywalk ownership and control agreements, and will propose any changes necessary to address jurisdictional issues that foster public safety concerns. With leadership from Chief Sanoa, we have realigned both problem-oriented policing and our behavioral health units to work seamlessly. We have removed the geographic east-west divide and aligned them directly under supervisors. They have different approaches and specialties, working in concert to address shared issues. And perhaps most importantly, with Attorney Freilich's leadership, we've discovered we don't need a ton of new laws. What we need to is enforce the laws we already have. Laws that represent our community norms. Attorney Freilich has been active in letting our public safety team know that she's in doing this important work. And tonight I want to hear clearly from me that I support them as well, and I'm grateful for the important work that they do. Now, longer term, the City of Duluth must be better at asking for help. Downtown Duluth isn't just a Duluth issue, and the solutions cannot come to the City of Duluth. Other units of government and St. Louis County are critical partners when encampments are on their property. We also, as the city, can show a little humility and do a better job of inviting our friends at St. Louis into this critical work. Duluth of the county's population and a significant portion of the county's tax base. I know county board members who are here, the county sheriff, the county attorney, that are all as the vitality of downtown Duluth as we are. To our city team, let's invite them into the work. Let's ask them to help. From the sheriff providing us some additional law enforcement backup while we remain 24 officers short of our authorized, so maybe health is taking more of a lead on substance use and shelter challenges. Whether it's other opportunities we can't see because we're so deep into what we're doing right now. Stop at the city limits, and we need to have the humility to acknowledge that and invite them in. And what are the ways that our near neighbors can also be our partners? I know Mayor Hurstead from Rice Lake is here. I know Mayor Boucher from Hermantown was planning on coming. I am mayor and council of every community in Duluth in my first 100 days. Hermantown, Two Harbors, Superior, the St. Louis County Board, I know you all downtown because you've told
not live there, but you work there, you shop there, you dine there, you eat there. But these are regional challenges, and mayors, I ask you to join me in the solutions. Now, moving forward, we will also develop and deploy a dedicated awareness campaign to address panhandling. I know it's harder to see what's no longer there than what is, but I hope you've noticed the dramatic reduction in panhandling in busy intersections. It's against city ordinance, and more importantly, it is unsafe for drivers, pedestrians, and those soliciting donations. But we must do more. This campaign will include an educational component aimed at residents and especially our visitors, who with the best intentions reward a challenging behavior. Panhandling is free speech. I acknowledge that, but that doesn't mean we have to incentivize it. These same private resources are best directed to a spectrum of local nonprofits and service agencies who will employ them in efficient and effective ways to help those most in need. Finally, a challenge for all of us. We have accepted a new norm over the past few years, and that must change. We can't just walk on by. If you see something, say something. Our public safety and outreach teams can't help if they don't know about it. And I know many have said, I just don't call anymore. It's going to happen. I just don't offer. Help won't be there. Don't accept that norm. Our goal is not and cannot be jail or the ER. Neither are effective, nor are they affordable. But we are actively pursuing an engagement model. And attempts are committed to getting people the help and resources they need. Living on the streets or in an encampment is not healthy for our community, and maybe more importantly, it's not healthy for those individuals. So allow me to close by saying a few words about the one big thing that will make the most significant difference downtown: residential housing, and lots of it. Thank you again for being here tonight, Mayor Kleiss. At your State of the City, I heard you speak about wanting 1,000 new residents in downtown St. Cloud. St. Cloud is about 69,000 people, so if we just took the same percentage in Duluth, our goal should be closer to 1,200. In Minneapolis, their fastest growing neighborhood is downtown Minneapolis. Imagine if that were true in downtown Duluth. More presence, more energy, more restaurants, more retail. Eyes on things. Problem behaviors flourish in spaces that are unwatched and where visitors are infrequent. A significant downtown residential population also helps us address the housing need. Creating opportunities for empty nesters, no-kid families, and young professionals opens up other existing housing. I'm a great. It's just me and a dog, Leo, living in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath hillside home. So from Brian Forcier's work on the Ordine to getting the new Lakeview 333 project moving again, to envisioning a new multi-story site of the current library that will include housing, retail, and a public library with adjacent community and service space, focusing on downtown residential development helps directly address our housing challenge. It creates housing across all income levels. It grows commercial tax base, and it helps lower every Duluth homeowner's individual tax bill. Most importantly, it is the game changer when it comes to Duluth. So the fifth of our 5 big issues is affordable property taxes. And any of us who ran last year had this discussion over and over and over again. Now, it's important to be about property taxes by setting the stage. My team used to call this Teacher Roger. You pay and property taxes goes directly to the City of Duluth. I know folks think it does, it doesn't. From your annual property tax bill, the county gets about 41%, the city gets 29%, the school district gets 26%, 4% goes to various entities like the Port Authority, the DTA, and the HRA. So the city gets just under 30%. Still, that's not nothing. In 2016, the City of Duluth General Fund was $80 million, and in 2024, it's $111 million, a 28% increase. In 2016, the city property tax levy was $24.2 million. In 2024, it's $45.2 million. That's a 46% increase in the city property tax levy over just the last 8 years. Now, it is reasonable for us to pay property taxes. Through them, we buy things we could do individually: a street system, a school system, police services. But property taxes are affordable and they must be sustainable. And that is frankly no longer the case for far too many Duluth homeowners, especially those on fixed incomes, the retired, our elderly neighbors, our veterans. And if you're a renter, you may not be paying that increase directly, but you're seeing it in the sharp increase in your rents. The political reality is that I inherited had already been set. The city administrator and our finance director, Dave and Jen, had been hard at work scrubbing the budget to determine must-dos and nice-to-dos. We intend to bring the City Council several budget item changes that better reflect our core city service priorities. We are stewards of these public dollars, and they are not infinite. And we will have to make choices about what we should be doing and how best to afford it. It does no one any good for us to be a mile wide and an inch deep. Instead, with these budget item changes and the 2025 budget we will develop, you will see a focus on doing less and resourcing it better. Now, I've never been a no new taxes guy, and you can easily see that in my years of elected service. But I have been a fan of responsible stewardship. Again, we've seen a near 50% increase in property taxes in the last handful of years. That is not affordable, nor is it sustainable. So tonight I am announcing that our 2025 budget will hold property taxes for the City of Duluth flat for the first time since 2014, in over a decade. With the exception, thank you. With the exception of capturing the new growth increment, which is usually about 1%, there will not be a local property tax increase in 2025. Now, I want to be clear on this point. That does not mean not ever. That is not realistic. But it is time to pump the brakes a little. And inside City Hall, it will force us to have conversations about must-do versus nice-to-do. Now, when it comes to budget, I've saved some exciting news for last. We have amazing folks working for the city. That's true. It's not the exciting news, but it is very true. We have amazing folks working for the city. I'm doing donuts with our employees because I love donuts and it's a great way to meet the employees. I've met probably a third of our 900 staff, so I have a long ways to go. These folks are dedicated to our community. They are passionate about providing good public services, and they are committed to the City of Duluth as an organization. And I really want to say thanks for letting me know when you see that too. I love sending what in the Navy we call a Bravo Zulu, a great job email or a handwritten note when I hear that staff have done amazing work, especially when it comes from the community. A great recent example. In the big snowstorm we had in March, one of our city plow drivers was plowing their route, saw an woman that had fallen at the end of her sidewalk because she was trying to put her garbage out. He stopped, helped her back into her home, traveled her entire walk, and then went on to finish his route. That is the kind of service you get from employees on a daily basis. Continue to tell me when you see that, because I love telling them when that is heard. But some of our real unsung City Hall heroes are in city finance. Again, I'm a little weak. Like, these are my folks. Jen Carlson and her team have been hard at work examining a significant budget expense put in place back when I was a city councilor and Don Ness was mayor. Retiree health care. This was a bargain for benefit that over time grew into a liability that threatened to bankrupt. Mayor Ness took it head on. Ironically, in his first tour of duty, Dave Montgomery was here for that work as well. And they found solutions. A reminder that we can do hard things with solid leadership. Contracts, our unions were partners in this, and contracts were negotiated to move from defined benefit to contribution. And we began setting aside roughly $1 million annually into a dedicated trust fund to affordability. So here's the really big thing when it comes to taxes in the general fund. We're there. Funded liability is funded. Approximately 20 years ago couldn't be solved. That is huge. A little bit operational. It's hard for the media to tell this in a quick soundbite, but that is huge news. Now, we still owe these employees an obligation, and we intend to keep it. But Josh Bailey, who I said I was going to call out, and I could tell he didn't like that, our city auditor, Josh Bailey, has run these numbers over and over again. And with a third-party actuarial. And as the city, we checked them with the State Board of Investment, who stress-tested our strategy. We're good. We're there. We're funded. Now we're still fiscally responsible approach and assume a conservative 4.5% return on investments. And we're going to continue budgeting an annual cash contribution from the general fund. But it will now be $3.5 million annually to pay retirees before we expend trust fund resources. And at the end of the projected liability period, we still have $27 million in that fund. So congratulations to whomever is the future mayor who inherits that budget windfall. But in the meantime, what does that mean? It means we free up $4.5 million in the budget starting in 2025 on an annual, ongoing basis. Let that sink in for a minute. So, councilors, in May, we will bring you the language necessary to begin implementing these changes. And tonight, I publicly ask for your support. Now, I realize that before we leave tonight, there are going to be 1,000 suggestions on that money. But I ask the people who are smart enough to find those funds the same question I ask all our staff. What's the one really big thing we could do to actually move the needle on core city service priorities? Their answer? Without hesitation, a combined maintenance facility. Now I know, as boring as it gets, right? But to borrow from an ad I saw recently, you know what's brilliant? Boring. The unsung catalyst for bold. Starting point for all the unboring things we do. Boring is, it's dependable, and it's steady. All the things you want for government. The things we do shouldn't make headlines. They should just work. And as Governor Tony Evers in Wisconsin told me when we had a chance to query, boring. What's the deal? Right now, we own 4 separate maintenance facilities. All of them are in need of repair. And some of them are in desperate need. Just ask our parks maintenance folks. And even with 4 facilities, we end up parking brand new equipment outside in the ice, snow, and cold. Now, I don't have a garage, but I'm guessing many of you do. Why? Because you wouldn't do with what we do with millions of dollars of city vehicles and rolling stock. Park them outside. It's not good stewardship of those invested tax dollars. So a facility, but it gets us indoor storage for our vehicles and rolling stock. It gets us a safe, clean, and functional space for city employees who operate those vehicles. And it gets us a safe, clean, and functional space for city employees who maintain those vehicles. It also gets us both financial savings from combined separate operations, and it frees up existing staff positions. So in the end, it saves money and people. both of which we will put right back into streets and utilities. Miles of streets, more street maintenance staff, no additional ask of the taxpayers. That, my friends, is thinking. It's doing the right thing, the big thing, moving the needle for years to come. So those are the 5 big issues to give you an update on, because we spent a lot of time talking about them last year. But as we wrap up tonight, I want to talk for a minute about how we will measure progress. Again, in the last decade, we only added some 400 new residents to our community. 400. We grew by 1% in 10 years. While regional centers around Minnesota grew at a rate of 10%. Around Duluth, what I call our near neighbors, grew from 7 to 14%. Why? In part because we're missing a growth mentality. Well, my friends, we must grow. If you're not growing, you're stagnant. And if you're stagnant, you're declining. It's just a matter of how quickly or slowly. As I mentioned earlier, I had the chance to attend Mayor Kleiss's State of the City in St. Cloud at the start of April. Mayor, one of the things you said really struck me. I was taking notes. He said, as mayor, it is my job to set the impossible goals. And then it's our job as a community to meet and surpass them. Duluth, in 2023, our population was 6,875, and that number essentially hasn't changed in 3 decades. And we had almost 107,000 people, and we still have the space and frankly maintain the infrastructure for that many. My impossible goal for us is that by the 2030 census, our population is over 90,000 people. Last time Duluth was over 90,000 people, 1980. Almost 50 years ago. Back then, we were the 3rd largest city in the state, behind Minneapolis and St. Paul. Today, friends, we are behind Minneapolis, St. Paul, Rochester, and Bloomington. To be honest, we're about 700 residents away, passed by Brooklyn Park and falling to 6th. Duluth, along the way tonight, I've given you different ways that you can measure progress and hold our city team accountable. But tonight I want to leave you with one easy, challenging number, and that is 90,000 people. And let's be clear, that number isn't just about Duluth's civic pride, though for me, that alone is enough. 5th, 6th, suburbs? Come on. 90,000 is the right measurable because it tells us we're doing all the talked about. Our commercial tax base and added not just primary industry jobs, but also those secondary and tertiary ones. We've added the housing levels necessary to attract and retain new residents. Job of investing in streets, utilities, and core infrastructure. And we've made our local property tax burden more affordable by adding new residents, existing and already largely built out city infrastructure. Duluth, this is not impossible. It is realistic. It is doable. It is an absolute must. I close tonight by inviting you in. Since the election last fall, literally hundreds of you, how can I help? And after 100 days in office, I have some ideas and a few invitations. And this is also an opportunity to acknowledge some folks with us tonight who have already jumped on board what I call the getting after it train. In addition to the 5 big issues, I also we would have another conversation about the future of the Lester Golf Course. And I work hard to do the things I say I'm going to do. So tonight I want to publicly thank Tim Meyer and Dennis Isernhagen for agreeing to co-facilitate that effort. Put word out in the community that you can nominate yourself to help, and over 100 of you replied to that invitation. You should have already gotten a thank you note from Dennis and Tim, and you know that we are organizing a community hall meeting for that 100 plus folks and sort themselves into some a fundraising committee, a group to look at what multi-use year-round activity encompasses, and of course, public golf. That meeting has been set, so mark your calendars now. We'll be meeting together May 23rd at Duluth East High School. Thank you again to the school district for hosting an important community function. I also said last year that I'd put together a group to invest and form the new RFP for the future of the millions we collect in annual tourism taxes. And I want to give a sincere appreciation to Karen Pionk, the general manager of the Duluth Hotel, who's taken on that task. In March, there's a round, yes, Karen's amazing. Thank you, Karen. In March, we announced an amazing cross-sector and geographically diverse team who has already held several meetings. They will define the parameters for future marketing contracts, as well as a new contract with Visit Duluth, our destination marketing organization. But how about you? How can you help? For the folks here, I know many are watching the live stream tonight. I would ask you first, what are you passionate about? There is a place for you to make a contribution. You love policy? Volunteer to work with John. Are you passionate about taxes and the budget? Call. No, I'm not sure what he prefers. Do you love our kids? Volunteer to support programs and activities in our neighborhood parks. Volunteer to help repair and maintain good community centers. The city cannot, nor should it, do everything. We need your civic spirit. We need your help. You know, to that guy who told me last year he had mowed in a neighborhood park because we hadn't, and telling him that if he did it again, he'd be fined, not on my watch. The mail you get is a handwritten thank you note from the desk of the mayor. Group who told me they wanted to adopt their community club and were willing to donate the materials, the cash, the sweat equity to fix it up, only to be told no, not on my watch. We need your financial and personal investment. But to be clear, I acknowledge we as City of Duluth have some work to do. Right now, we make it difficult to volunteer to help with the work of the city. Too difficult. John, figure this out. We're going to decide what needs to be changed, and then we're going to do it. I also want to invite you to consider serving on some of our boards and commissions. But here again, first, we have some work to do. Boards and commissions, 39 to be exact. Rochester has 19. Mayor, if I counted right, St. Cloud has 21. In Duluth, we have 39. Every one of them requires staff to draft agendas, type up minutes, attend meetings, and follow up on requests for information. We frankly don't have. And an honest assessment shows that about a third of them are in the green. They have a vital mission, no vacancies, a waiting list, and they're functioning well. About another third, or maybe they would have some mission clarity and filling a few vacancies. And to be honest, another third are in the red. They can't get a quorum, they can't have meetings, and their mission and purpose is either evolving or unclear. So here I will make my final ask of the City Council. Let's look at where we can align and reform our city boards and commissions. Let's make good use of our citizens who want to be involved. Now maybe we can't reduce the number in half, and maybe in the mix we even create a new one, something like a transportation commission to have input on streets and sidewalks and paths and our trails. But surely we can reduce the number. That doesn't mean the space for important issues goes away. It means they all have clear and vital missions. They are no vacancies, multiple applicants waiting to serve, and they are all functioning well. The City Council made many of these, and the City Council to take up this challenge. You're the right body to lead that each one of our boards and commissions is in the green. And finally, for all of us as residents, we're entering the spring cleaning season. And in keeping with my mantra of see something and do something, I want to invite you to join me in a corner of our beloved city. And here are specific examples. Next Saturday is Clean Your Creek. And you can go to keepduluthclean.org. there. It is wet, it is muddy, it is fun. Come join me. You can also join the Adopt a Drain program. It's super easy. adoptadrain.org. Just go type in an address and it will show you storm drains near that address. Most in Duluth are still in need of someone to check on them a couple times a year to clear leaves, trash, and other debris. These storm drains flow directly into our local streams and often directly into Lake Superior. So without a little TLC on our part, they just become conduits for trash and pollutants. And then over the next few weeks, I also ask that you take an afternoon and just walk your neighborhood. Pick up trash. Fix it, clean it, freshen it up yourself if you're able. Let us know if you can't. Connect with your neighbors and maybe meet some new ones along the way. Duluth care, others will notice. And when we care, others will also care. I appreciate your time tonight, your attention and your patience. I know this has been lengthy, but at 100 days, I believe this is the content our community has wanted, and it's the content our community deserves. I'm a person of faith, so when I say this, I literally mean it. God bless our Duluth, our zenith city, our emerald city, our shining city on the hill, on the shores of the greatest of the Great Lakes. Each have been placed in this place at this time to do what we can with what we have, make our beloved Duluth a strong, vibrant, and thriving community, not just for ourselves today, but for the Duluthians yet to come. I'm in, and I hope all of you are as well. So let's get after it.